Freedom is a given, speak how you feel. I have no freedom, how do you feel? They can lie to my face but not to my heart. If we all stand together it will be a start. If the kids are united they will never be divided. Good evening ladies and gentlemen, we are now floating in Screamacelica. My name's Kevin Graham and as usual on a Tuesday night I'm joined by Boyce. Boyce, what's happening mate?
How we doing, Kev? I hope you can't hear my washing machine vibrating my full flat in the background there, no?
No, can't hear your washing machine at all, mate. Can't hear it at all.
It is a joy to be back on Tuesday because I know we want to speak about an album.
Yes, it's the Verve Reprise, which is... It's a very good title because the Verve reprised quite a lot of songs on their albums as well, so I just found that... I thought that was an interesting title, The song that I opened with there, that of Sham 69. What do you ken about Sham 69?
They sang a song that my dad used to always sing when I was young called Hurry Up Harry.
Hurry Up Harry, aye.
We're going down the pub. Come on. It was a song on a yellow case CD compilation album called The Greatest Punk Anthems of All Time. You know, one of those generic ones, you know what I mean?
Aye.
But that's why I don't know who Sham 69 are. But I know the song, If the Kids Are United, They Will Never Be Divided. That used to be a jukebox classic by the older generation that would drink in my boozer.
Brilliant. The reason that I chose Sham 69 this week was because there is a West Ham connection with them, but I know like the Cockney Rejects were the ICF's band, but Sham 69 sort of got lumped in with that Oi movement because they were quite shouty. Unfortunately for Sham 69, they attracted a lot of right-wing skinheads and racists to gigs, which was completely against the band's politics. And they eventually had to stop playing live in 1979 because of the violence at gigs, and it was just getting far too much for them. That song, The Kids Are United, I remember getting the 7-inch single, and it was my cousin gave me the 7-inch single, and I used to bounce about the bedroom with a tennis racket along to it.
I love that. That's
brilliant. I just had that sort of, you get what I mean, just that punchiness, and it was just great. And I had the football terrace sort of shouting, like choruses and all of that. A bit like Oasis took over later on. But that song got to number 9 in the charts in 1978. But if you want to check something out on YouTube, check out the B-side, Sunday Morning Nightmare. But the B-side of that to the Kids Are United single, Sunday Morning Nightmare, is just as good if you like that sort of shouty punk. Jimmy Pursey was the lead singer of Sham 69. Now, do you ken what film he auditioned for? A very famous film that was released in 1978. There was 2 punk frontmen auditioned for this film, and both didn't get the part.
Don't know.
Okay. Jimmy Pursey and John Lydon both auditioned for the part of Jimmy in Quadrophenia.
Wow.
So that's... Obviously, Phil Daniels ended up getting the gig, but at the start of the process, the 2 men that they looked at to play Jimmy in Quadrophenia was Johnny Rotten and Jimmy Pursey for Sham 69, but it didn't happen.
Very good.
So there you go. Now, the DeLorean's stuck in 1997. We're waiting on this thunderstorm so we can actually connect it to a bell tower. And so we can send it somewhere else. But we've kind of moved forward. It's the 30th of November 1997, and the Hoops are going to Ibrox. And we're going to Ibrox because it's a cup final, and Hampden's getting done up. And we're playing Dundee United in this cup final. A couple of years before that, we had a tough cup final, another Coca-Cola Cup final at Ibrox when we got beat off of Raith Rovers. What's your memories, Boyce, coming into this cup final? How were you feeling?
So at this point in time, in my sort of Celtic childhood, Kev, I've only won one trophy as a Celtic supporter. The Scottish Cup final. I watched this game. I remember the exact house I was in. A boy from a primary school class, he lived in a far bigger house than me, I may add. And he didn't really have much passion for football. But yet, I had forced this boy.
Daniel Mack talking about four non-bonds.
Well, I've never, I'm not into non-bonds, but judging by the highlights. The game was odd to me because I had never really clicked. My first cup final memory was Paul McStay missing the penalty against Raith Rovers.
A penalty kick that I've still never seen. Even though I was there, I still haven't seen that penalty kick that day.
Yeah, right. So
I never watched it at the time. Even though I was at the game, I never watched it at the time.
That's mad, because the thing was, I was at such an age then when that cup final occurred that I wasn't aware of the date or the month of in the season calendar when it was played. So I can remember when we were playing this League Cup final thinking, wow, we've just lifted a trophy and it's dark. It's afternoon time and it's dark already, because it's 30th of November. So that to me in itself was unusual. But my memories of it is where I watched it. It was at a guy called James Mackay's house, who wasn't a Celtic supporter at all, but I made him watch it with me. And I suppose it was unusual for us to be already lifting a trophy that early in the season. I mean, I've only ever seen us winning the Sun, at Hampden against Airdrie 1-0. This match we've emphatically won. And
we did.
And we were a team that looked extremely dominant, and there wasn't a relief feeling at the end. It was, we scalped them. So that was another unusual factor, because my Celtic sort of life up to then had been, if we won, it'd be by the skin of our teeth, or like a big game sort of thing, or it'd be a nerve shredder or whatever. Whereas this match, we're lifting a trophy here, having won with ease.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Banks comes in and says, this cup final was the first one I ever managed to get a ticket for. That's brilliant, especially going to your first cup final and winning. I love the fact that this cup final isn't played in the dark. I loved it because in the early 80s it was played at the same time, November, December time. It was always played on a Sunday afternoon, November, December in the early 80s. Then they moved it to later on in the season, I think possibly the year after this. They moved it because it must have been the year after it, because we retained the trophy and the cup final was in March. They moved it to the March, and now they've moved it back. I always used to like the fact is this could set up your season. Like if you won that first trophy.
I think you're spot on with that.
If you won that first trophy, this could set up your season, and you could actually say this was the case for this team. For a point I'll go on to later on. So the Celtic team that came out that day was Gould, Boyd, Maye, Wee Jackie, Matt Reaper, Alan Stubbs, Henrik Larsson, Craig Burley, Andy Tom, Morton Weekhorst and Reggie Blinker. On the bench was Anone, Donnelly and Paul Lambert. So that is the makeup of Wim Janssen's Celtic side, a side that we waxed lyrical about for far too long last week until I realised the time. And the week before, we played Dundee United as well and bet them 4-0 at Celtic Park. So I remember going into this game with an air of confidence because we were better. They're a decent Dundee United side. They're a Dundee United side that had a very Scandinavian feel in them, and there was quite a few Scandinavians in that side. Oh, what is it?
Stole my thunder.
Right, on you go, take your thunder back.
No, it wasn't really thunder. No, you've not. It was just, that was my observation from watching that. It was good 15-minute highlight, by the way, on YouTube. I didn't watch the full match. But when they said Shella Lobson, when he was taking the the free kick, and then it was the other one was Zetterlund and Skoldmar, and I noticed the same. I went, there's quite a Scandinavian feel to that Dundee United team. Mm-hmm. But no, that's interesting. That was something you picked up on as well. Brilliant.
I think we were always linked with Olafsson. I think Monty. I'll have to bring in Monty here. This is my Screamacelica set debut. Where have you been, mate?
Welcome.
Welcome, but where have you been? And maybe the new time suits him. We're at this time, and we are going to be at this time every single week now because of the new show on A State of Mind, the state of Scottish football. It looks under the boulders of elements of Scottish football that other shows don't do, and the guys on it are cracking.
Agreed.
So get on that as well, between 6 and 7, 5 days a week as well, live. Loads of good guys on it, loads of good topics. Get involved in the comments and that. I think it's going to be the first gig was last night, and it was really successful. And I watched the one the night there, and it was fantastic as well. Talking about, I never thought I would spend half an hour when I was preparing for this talking about Ayr United and Hibs and St Johnstone. So,
but that is brilliant to get that flavour involved, isn't it? Because it is easy just to be biased to one club, which of course we are, but it is the league that we live in, and I think the young boys are doing from what I watched last night, Sean's definitely he's got the reins like you do on this show, Kev. He's got them in a tight grip, and I like that.
Aye, it was good. It was good tonight, and obviously it's no. We'll get back to the folk we're meant to be talking about now. Obviously, it's no like Radio Clyde or any commercial. They're going to talk about things that you only get on other channels. So it's not going to be Celtic and Rangers orientated. I mean, we blather enough about Celtic on this channel anyway. So you may as well get some other views which are no
absolutely agreed.
Which are no ours. Aye, we were always linked with Olafsson and Pedersen as well. I always remember I thought they were decent players for Dundee United in this team. What surprised me in this team, you've always got Big Sieb Dijkstra still there as well for the Dundee United side, and Maurice Malpass is still running about. I mean, he must have been about 159 by this point, Malpass. I mean, you didn't get that nowadays. Well, we've just had Scott Brown leave right enough, but Maurice Malpass spending his career at one club, he's talking about from early 80s, right the way through. And it was not as if Maurice Malpass wouldn't have been short of offers, because at one point he was one of the best fullbacks in Britain. And during the 80s, he was one of the best fullbacks in Britain.
Yeah.
And I always found it surprising that he didn't actually get a move. I was in the Copeland Road this game. The second time I've ever been in the Copeland Road. Was it the second time? Second time I've been in the Copeland Road. First time I was in the Copeland Road was played Hibs. Wally Faulkner scored for Celtic. And I was in the Copeland Road that Friday night. And so this was the second time I was in the Copeland Road.
Cool.
Never want to be back there right enough. It's it wasn't too good. But the day was fantastic. Celtic, we went there on a high. You were talking about this Liverpool game the other week there, which showed which showed where this team could go. And the fact is, we had tonked Dundee United 4-0 the week before. We're playing them again at Ibrox. Our ambition was through the roof. Our expectation was through the roof going to this game, but it was tempered with Raith Rovers. It was tempered with the fact is, if we won, it would only be our second trophy of the 90s, and it was also tempered with this point, we thought we were cursed. we really thought we were cursed coming into cup finals and against teams that we should win, games that we should win, teams that we should beat. So there was a bit of nerves coming into this game. Fortunately enough, they were settled in after 21 minutes. Andy Tom picks up the ball on the right-hand side and he plays the ball to Morton Weghorst. Weghorst puts in a pinpoint There you go. Ping pong, pit pong. Right. A ping. He put in a perfect cross. Like stuff. I'm not going for the alliteration of the P's. He put in a perfect cross, which is met by Mark Reaper, who bulleted the ball in off the left-hand post. It's a picture goal, eh? It's a cracking goal.
The header at to aim it to the back post the way he's done. It's a perfect glancing header, isn't it?
It's a great header.
It's a striker's header. Let's be honest. It's not a typical centre half header, that one, Kev. It's done with a bit of finesse that you would expect from a striker who's good in the air, not a centre half. But Mark Reaper was someone who, I wouldn't say ahead of his time in that sense, but I suppose had the attributes that a lot of teams would look for just now, where he was very comfortable with the ball at his feet.
Well, let's have a look at this. We got a Danish international centre half with over 50 caps at that point for £1.5 million from West Ham United.
And if I'm not mistaken, when he signed, he was, 29?
Yes, he would have been, yes.
So he's at the peak of his powers as well, which is quite the thought that you'd be getting, let's say the equivalent would be Simon Kjær just now.
Simon Kjær? Jason Kjær?
No, Simon Kjær, the guy who plays for Denmark now, who's got over 50 caps, Kev, who's about 29 years old.
Right, right, okay. But what we get him for? 1.5 million?
No, he would be 50 probably, or 30 or something daft like that. So right, it's quite enlightening to think you're getting a guy coming into the peak, because a centre half for me, 29 years old, they're coming into their peak, aren't they, Kev?
Mm-hmm.
They are. This is peak age, 50 caps in the bank, and you're choosing to leave the EPL for Celtic. You don't get them for 1.5 million now. You're absolutely right.
Well, let's bring this round to my faux pas there and speak to Jason about Jason Kjær. You would get Jason Kjær for £1.5 million now.
Very true. Good player.
He is a good player, but he's not Mark Reaper. Good. He's not sitting there with 50 caps for Denmark, having been a first-team player at West Ham. Another West Ham connection was the reason that I brought up Mark Reaper as well. See, these things just didn't work themselves out.
Here's the question then, Kev. Did Mark Reaper was he part of the squad that won Euro 92?
I'm going to say not. I'm going to say no. I don't think that is on his record. I'm going to say no.
He'll be 23, 24 by then, so it's interesting. Just trying to work it out in my head. I'm not sure either.
I can't remember.
We would have celebrated that by now, wouldn't we, if he had been?
Aye, we would have mentioned that.
We'll move on for that.
So if you look at Reaper, we may as well talk about Reaper now before we move on with the game, because Scott Howe comes in and says Reaper was class.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fully back that comment, that he was class. Him and Alan Stubbs that season formed a formidable partnership. And it was a partnership which was cultured, but also as hard as a fire door. They were really, really good, really strong, and especially Reaper. Reaper was an absolute leader, and he was also built like the side of a bungalow. He was a great player, and to get that for £1.5 million was unbelievable when you actually look back on it now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's one of the players my dad absolutely adored. He thought the guy, this is a steal. And he used to talk about Reaper all the time being a class act. He was at 96. Fair enough. I was just wondering if he'd maybe played at 92, because I knew it fell into his sort of early 20s. It was worth a go. But we would have known. They would have known. Celtic would have found a connection to Euro 92 when Reaper signed. So, but he was a player that, I'll be honest, even when I was young, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I had a mature football mind then, but Stubbs used to frustrate me as a player. I don't know if my memory is telling me about the seasons preceding 97, 98, but Stubbs, I was never his biggest fan as a player, growing up, but I don't know if it was after that season. He calmed Stubbs right down. There you go.
Facebook user comes in and says he calmed Stubbs right down, and that's, I think, that they two became the mainstay of Jansen's championship team because Stubbs benefited from Mark Reaper being alongside him.
Yeah, and bear in mind that Alan Stubbs cost £4 million.
3 years before that, it would have been.
No.
94, 95.
What?
That was signed. Tommy Burns signed Stubbs. So Stubbs would have been at the club.
Someone will need to find that out. I think he was 96 as late as... I would think he was only been there a year. I would think he'd only been there a year.
David Bradley comes in. Kev, what was his trophy haul? Reaper with Celtic won the league and the League Cup. Unfortunately, Reaper got injured in October '98 and had to retire in July 2000 because of a toe injury. And he only really had one good season. He only had really one season at Celtic, and he retired at 32-year-old.
Scary, eh?
And he became part of Martin O'Neill's original backroom staff. He came back as Martin O'Neill. He was part of Martin O'Neill's original backroom staff because Celtic couldn't get Robertson and Walford and right away because Leicester were hanging on to him. So Matt Reaper and Tommy Burns took the first couple of days training for Martin O'Neill, and they were Martin O'Neill's backroom staff all the way through pre-season. Celtic asked Reaper to stay on, but he decided to go back to Denmark, where he started coaching at our house. No, the Madness song for everybody out there. So Graham Caldwell, Kev, Stubbs played for Celtic from '96 to 2001. I thought it was earlier than that, but there you go.
Every day's a school day, Kev. You can't always be right.
That was my Buckfast year, so all the years just blend into one. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. He went to our house, became a coach for our house, where he took a certain Liam Miller on loan when he became coach there.
I did not know that. Very good. I didn't know that.
He took Liam Miller and another Celtic player called Mick Doyle on loan.
I knew he went there.
But Liam Muller went there as well. That's fair.
Mick Doyle was a left winger, wasn't he?
Oh, I can't remember.
He played on the left, but I did not remember Liam Miller being out there.
Stubbs was signed on the 10th of July 1996.
Well, it's easy when you've got Google in front of you, Grant, you know. But I am chuffed that you've let us know.
Aye, definitely. Matt Reaper scored 2 goals in his Celtic career, and this cup final was one of them. This cup final was one. Obviously, if you only played a season, that's 2 goals for your centre half. That's fine. But for me, I always look back at Reaper as one of the genuine heroes of that time. He's a hero of that of one of those Celtic teams, and he'll always be remembered fondly, even though it was only for a short period of time for what he contributed to Celtic in that season.
Well, I think the important part as well with that, Kev, is, you know, it wouldn't have been a short period of time if injuries hadn't prevented it. That is undeniable. You know, and the one thing as well, you know, you look at the managers that followed, you get to Martin O'Neill's era, and Martin O'Neill never really had ageism in him. In fact, Martin O'Neill tended to I think, more mature players. So if Mark Reaper, when O'Neill takes up 32, you can be assured he would have been someone he would have used 100%.
You know that a fit Mark Reaper would have played in a Martin O'Neill Celtic.
Yep.
You know that 100% from just looking back to see what Martin O'Neill done with Celtic. You knew that Mark Reaper would have been part of Martin O'Neill Celtic.
Yeah, I agree.
And O'Neill tried to make him stay as part of the backroom staff as well. So it showed you O'Neill had respect for the guy and his work that he had done in the pre-season with Martin O'Neill. Mark McLean comes in with a great point as well. Without Stubbs' header in November against Rangers, which was 2 weeks before this cup final, there would be no 1 in a row Aye, it's true there. It's a great towering header by Stubbs in the last minute. What I really like about that game is there's a moment of silence when the Celtic fans realise the ball's in the back of the net. And when you watch the footage back, you can actually hear the players shout that it's in before the crowd goes absolutely mental. It's quite a weird thing. Check it out in the highlights. Stubbs headers the ball, and when it hits the back of the net, there's silence, and you hear the players shouting, and you hear Andy Gorn screaming, basically.
Am I right in thinking Alan Stubbs scored again in the following Old Firm game at Ibrox as well?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure of that.
I think he scored again. Remember, I'm sure he curled one at the far corner. I think he scored 2 Old Firms in a row.
Kieran comes in. Now this is one I'll fire at you, Boyce. Reaper was more into pulp than the Verve.
Well, how do you know that, Kieran, is beyond me. But respect to Mark Reaper's musical tastes.
I reckon Stubbs would have been more into the Verve, but maybe that's just me stereotyping Scousers, Scouse mystics and stuff like that. Kenny 67 comes in to say Reaper scored 3 goals, 1 at Tynecastle, 1 at Easter Road, and 1 at Ibrox. I must have missed one. Kenny scored 1 against. I thought he only scored against Hibs and Dundee United. Every day's a school day. Stubbs scores. The place goes absolutely mental. Ibrox goes absolutely mental. 2.5 minutes later, Henrik Larsson intercepts a pass from Mark Perry, and he gets to the edge of the box and he fires a shot. It takes a wicked deflection of Morris Malpass and flies over Dijkstra and ends up in the back of the net. At that point, even us in the stands begun to believe that Celtic winning their second throw through the 90s was on the cards at that point. And when you watch the footage again, and I've just watched it recently, the place goes mental. The players go mental, the crowd goes mental, and the noise that you get from the highlights, or if you've watched the full game, is unbelievable. It's unfitting for a League Cup final between Celtic and Dundee United. The place, the noise that's actually made it's hairs on the back of the neck stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, with the second goal, what I noticed watching it back, we always talk about modern football, Kev, and how there's different tactics applied now that have become the norm. The high press is at its earliest foundation in that Celtic team on that day. They're swarming the Dundee United goal by this point, and it is relentless. Dundee United cannot even root the ball out without someone being able to block it, deflect it somehow, get it down, 1-2s, quick passes. And Larsson is at the heart of all of it. That's the thing. And obviously, we would always say Larsson deserves his goal, whether it was wickedly deflected or not. But in that particular game, he actually genuinely does. If you watch the involvements he's got in all the attacking moves he did, particularly the first half, he's everywhere in that final third. And he is linking up play left, right and centre. And his brain is already at this point at an elite level that we're maybe not yet grasping how elite it was. Do you know what I mean?
I do get what you mean. He's shown signs of being a quality player at this point, after a slow start, should we say. But I'll still always claim that Dr. Joe Venglos the following season made him the striker that he became. At this stage, he was showing his football intelligence as coming in from the wide areas and linking up with place. But when Venglos married that with being a centre forward, being the main man in the middle, he then became the zeitgeist player that he is for anybody my age.
Well, whilst I agree with that, there's undoubted as well one of Larsson's best attributes that he showed in the match, and this has really stuck out to me watching it. See the attributes he shows in that game, as I say, particularly first half, he replicated it one different club, Manchester United. Mm-hmm. He actually became that you watch what he was like at Man United, and I have watched so many highlights. I remember I would tune in every Man United game when he was on Sky, when he'd signed for them, because you couldn't resist not to. And when the role he played for them, because he only scored, I think, 3 goals in 11 games, but the role he played was so similar. It was actually eerily reminiscent when I watched it. Maybe he's doing it slightly quicker, but when he went to Manchester United, it was so similar, the movements, the wee dropping a wee bit deeper, quick 1-2s, turning away, passing without looking, laying it off. It was all happening in that first half against Dundee United by Henrik. He deserved that big deflected goal, but I've got to say, yes, he adapted to being, as you say, just a predator. One of European football's most feared strikers for years. He actually reverted back to the guy he was under Wim Jansen, I would say, at Old Trafford. That's who it reminded me of.
What you've got to remember at this point, Larsson's came out a difficult time in Rotterdam.
Yep.
And you can tell that he's enjoying football at this point because he's getting game time. At this point, you see the way that he celebrates his goal. It's like there's a release there, as if to go, I didn't expect this a year ago that I was going to be playing in a cup final when I was struggling in Rotterdam, when I was struggling at Feyenoord. There's a relief that Celtic gave him this platform to play. There's a relief that Wim Jansen trusted his talents, trusted his ability, knew about the clause in the contract to get this player for 650 grand. And I think you can see the enjoyment in that side. And this goes back to what we spoke to last week, Russell. I think that Liverpool game, as you quite rightly says, built the confidence in that side. Even though we ended up going out against Liverpool, the fact that they went to an English Premier League side and didn't get beat over 2 games against them gave this side confidence. And I think you see it from this point on. Because when we won this game, we had lost 4 league games up to this point, and we only lose 1 league game after this point. And that was against Rangers at Ibrox in the end of March 98. So from Liverpool to here builds the confidence of Wim Jansen Celtic.
I think you're absolutely right, Kev. When you look at the Liverpool performance, like I said last week, I felt that was the first free insight into what we were going to become in the future, let alone just that season. The cup win instills a different mentality, doesn't it? See, when you win a trophy, that then becomes addictive. That is an addictive thing. Getting put out by Liverpool isn't addictive, but the performance is something to strive to repeat, because playing against most sides, you will get results if you can play at that level. But winning trophies is a chemical to footballers that they cannot replicate by doing anything but winning trophies. It is the drug. It is the addiction, is winning trophies. That becomes part of your psyche. You become a very successful player or team. So you look at the Liverpool stuff was the foundation. The League Cup a couple of months later gave them the belief. When they ended up winning the league, they were probably not surprised. The only thing they were surprised at was the fact they didn't do it at East End Park the week before.
Falconbridge, which should be a witch's spell, actually, the amount of times that we say it on this podcast. Jogge comes in, Barcelona Champions League final, Larsson a brain and movement and reverse passing, football brain unrivalled. No argument there for anybody on this show. Mick Jai 2051, more a number 9 with Celtic, but more a second striker number 10 at other clubs. This backs up your point, Russell, about him at Man United and Barcelona, and also in this season for Celtic, because he was more of a second striker number 10 this season with Celtic. Even though we're building up to what was a successful season, we still have a funny incident that happened in this game, which shows how far we had to go to be an absolutely fantastic side. Reggie Blinker manages to hit his backside with his own shot, which is something that you'll never see again, and something to this day that you'll have NASA scientists trying to work out how Reggie Blinker managed to hit a ball with his right foot into the ground, get in front of it, and it comes up and hits his butt. It is embarrassing, eh?
It is. I mean, obviously, he is a predominantly left-footed player. You've seen plenty. We spoke about Simon Donlan, his left foot at Anfield only last week. And the reason that he would have probably scored that opportunity had he been on his right. But Reggie doesn't just miss. He, as you say, defies science, which isn't ideal for someone who's probably referred to now as a bit of a joke character.
Well, when you see things like this, when you see things like this again, you go,
I get it.
It's quite easy, eh?
I totally get it. And it's funny because I spoke about this with Paul this morning in the studio. We were talking about, because I seen the incident with Blinker and I says, see when you look back at it, imagine Celtic signing a 28-year-old, 28-year-old Dutch international winger from the English Premier League right now and being a joke figure.
It wouldn't happen, mate. It's when you say stuff like that, it's how far football's changed in the last 25 years. I don't know, again, if we get any technical problems here, I just had a flash of thunder there, that's how I jumped. So
I thought it was my part.
No, it wasn't your part, no, it was a flash of thunder there. It was, can you hear the thunder, a sound of strength in numbers? Aye. As you say, Reggie Blinker was a Dutch internationalist, and he somehow managed to hit his own arse with a ball.
Yeah,
which is it's a skill. You can't teach Waynes that. You can't teach Waynes how to do that. But even that couldn't stop Celtic that day. And let's give Blinker his due. He does actually make up for this for his role that he played in the third goal. The third goal came on the 59 minutes. Mm-hmm. Larsson gets the ball on the right-hand side and cuts into the box. He feeds the ball to Blinker on the edge of the blocks. Blinker probably should shoot, but he doesn't. He takes a heavy touch. He then goes by two Dundee United players, gets to level with the 6-yard box and puts in a perfect cross for Craig Burley to what would become known as the Stan Petrov type header, who charges into the box and headers into the back of the net from about 3-4 yards. It's a great goal and great wing play by Reggie Blinker, even though we've just slagged him there for the last 5 minutes. Credit where credit's due.
And you know, that third goal, he is offside, right? Did you not notice that when you watched it back?
Who, Blinker's offside?
No, Craig Burley, the header that he scores.
No, I never noticed that, no.
Oh, mate, it's... Oh, aye. He's definitely like he's standing offside before the cross goes in. He's still standing offside. It's not like he dives, he jumps back and then goes forward. Oh, he's offside. Diving header. You would never have known it. No one even mentions it in commentary.
Is that VAR? VAR would have chopped that off.
Boyce's VAR came out, Kev. I was like that. Need to chop that one up. No. I mean, let's be honest. That was payback for George Cadetti's one that we spoke about a month ago, Kev. You know what I mean? So I don't feel bad about it in the slightest. I've seen Donny Boy's comment there. You never played amateur football then, Kev, with a capital V. If you think that's a skill. Obviously, never wrote a book, Donny Boy, or done any spoken word with a capital V at the end of Kev.
No, what he's talking about, if I think Reggie Blinker hitting his arse with a ball,
I know what he's talking about. I know what he's talking about.
I never played amateur football. The highest I ever got was Sunday League, and even then I had 179 unused subs appearances in Sunday League. I was that bad. I got to pick the tracksuits every season because I'll be wearing it. So when we got I got to pick the tracksuit.
So when I grew up, I went to Dunblane High, right? So we played for a team called Auchterarder Primrose.
Right.
Guess who played centre midfield? I played left back. Think. Andy Murray.
Andy Murray. I was going to say Andy Murray played centre. Aye, there you go. Was he any good?
Brilliant.
Was he?
Oh, the best player in the team by a country mile. I was a huge Hibs fan, but I had a trial for Rangers. Didn't fancy it.
There's another flash of thunder there. I play.
I'll give you a virtual cuddle, mate.
It's fine, man. If I disappear, producer Paul's sitting in the wing ready to come in. Kenny 67 points out. We didn't sign Reggie Blinker, Ross. Come on, he was traded with the Canyon.
So we didn't sign Reggie Blinker then. As you're telling me, we just got him. We didn't even know he was joining. No, that's called part of the transfer, Kenny. That's part of the deal. We agreed to sign Reggie Blinker as a make-weight for selling Di Canio. You don't just get players like, oh, and by the way, there's Reggie Blinker. You've no choice. He's just joining. We did sign Reggie Blinker.
It was no something like your Octorada Primrose friend. Somebody wanted to come to you and they would offer like a set of cones and a couple of training bots. Was Reggie Blinker not just thrown into the deal like that?
Don't make that offer for me.
Nobody ever made that offer for me.
Kenny, I mean, I want to understand your point right now, but what do you mean we didn't sign Reggie Blinker? We did sign Reggie Blinker.
Look, he's got a wee emoji there. He's got a wee emoji. He's actually said he was traded with the Canyon. I think he's kind of having a wee go at Jock Brown, because that's how Jock Brown would have sold that. He was traded with the Canyon.
Oh, yes.
We got rid of a troublesome Italian who's never been near the Italian national team, and we traded him for a Dutch international winger. There you go. That's how you sell a deal, man.
Are you Jock Brown in disguise, Kev? That's what I need to know now.
No. Amy definitely interviewed the right Jock Brown, and it wasn't me.
That's right.
Archduke 8-1-99. Remember Reggie pulling out of a 50-50 tackle against Zagreb, I think. Yes, he did. In the away leg the following season in the Champions League.
A wee bit, didn't he?
He absolutely.
He kind of gets up to him and he does that. It's funny.
Kenny 67 comes in, and I was spot on, mate. I was spot on. Yeah. Don't argue with me. That was the words of Jock Brown.
Kenny,
brilliant.
You need to put the quotation marks in and say Jock Brown.
I know, but
I can only deal with what I see, Kenny. I apologise, mate.
That was the wee emoji. It was the wee emoji that gave that away to me.
No, that was my bad then. I apologise, Kenny.
Aye. We're 3-0 up, and I'm going to go Celtic Da here. We won this game at a canter. This is only our second trophy in the 90s. It was the second trophy of the 90s. And see all these folk that are complaining about what we're actually seeing now. Come back to me in 10 years' time when we won the second trophy. This is how this place went absolutely mental when we scored the second and third goal, because we knew at that point we were getting a trophy, we were getting our hands on silverware. And I'm going to Celtic Da. And want to ken, son, see when we won our next trophy, the celebrations will be the same. We will be so up for that. The next trophy that we won is going to be the best.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's going to be the best trophy. And people who moan about where we are always appreciate winning trophies. Never let that feeling go, or take it for granted. And I'm sorry to say, I think some of the Celtic support started winning leagues, thinking winning leagues, cups and that for granted, and didn't appreciate what we actually done. That's just my opinion, but I'll let me state it now. The next trophy that we win, and we're all in the stadium, is going to be utterly cracking.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's going to be off the scale.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the fans, there's got to be an element of support who maybe feel that they do expect it or whatever, but I also think that complacency was replicated in the board. So
now you were talking about Henrik Larsson.
Yes.
Morten Weghorst got man of the match. And if you watch his highlights, he was absolutely superb this game.
the pace of him, underrated as well. His dribbling ability, his ability to take the ball from his own half into the sort of final third of the opposition half in 5 seconds was superb. His distribution's brilliant. It's his cross for the first goal, I'm sure, as well, for Reaper. Was Morton Beecroft, and you're absolutely right, he gets man of the match. And I loved his interview after the game because he speaks in that amazing Scandinavian stroke Glaswegian accent. It's just wonderful, isn't it?
Scandinavian, Dundonian, Glaswegian accent.
Brilliant.
Aye, Big Morton again, and we spoke about him in the Liverpool game a few weeks before, and we speak about him here. He was absolutely fabulous in this game, and it was a game that he actually thought Paul Lambert was going to play. He didn't expect to play until 2 hours, and he was told 2 hours before the kickoff that he was going to play ahead of Paul Lambert, and Janssen was proved right.
Which is one heck of an achievement considering that same year Paul Lambert's won a Champions League medal only 4 months before.
Mm-hmm.
From starting the final, man marking Zidane out the Champions League final, to coming on with 2 minutes to go in the League Cup final 4 months later in Scotland.
Yes.
Wow.
Scott Howe videotaped it, watched it over and over, was like we won the European Cup. Brilliant. Remember it like yesterday. That's the that's the memories that never leave you. Did you see that? That was the memories that will never. That was the memories that will never leave you. Something
That's class.
Something now that a lot of the younger generation take for granted. We loved that day. I think I was off my work for 2 days after it. I think I was up the Rainbow Rocks and Stirling and everything on that Sunday night celebrating it. And that's just the way it was, because it's a second trophy in like 8 years. It's quite difficult now. I mean, I was at the game on Saturday, and there's a lot of young fellas on our bus, and you're trying to tell them that this is still a good time for Celtic just to get on with it and stuff like that, And when you're watching this today, watching these highlights again today, you're going, it brought me back going, what a day that was. That was a great day. And we all sang Roll With It at the final whistle, and they played it over the PA, and we all went mental and we all went home happy. It seemed like a mere innocent time, actually.
Well, it's amazing because you talk about the music after the song, and whilst I've always associated Roll With It as a Celtic song because of that season, they also, ironically, Phil Ibrox take up the majority of it and sing You'll Never Walk Alone, with it played over the tannoy. Now, do you imagine if for some reason there was some sort of issue with Hampden and Celtic have to play a cup semi-final or a final at Ibrox, would they play that over the tannoy this season? Say it happened this season.
Nah, they wouldn't let us in.
I think say they. I don't think that would happen.
I don't think it would happen. You have a look at when we won the title.
But it did strike me as so noticeable. Sorry, Kev. It was like when you click, they're all in the stands, and you're going, wait now. You almost, I forgot it was at Ibrox, and you're going, they're playing that over the speaker. I just don't see that happening nowadays.
I've never thought about that, but that's maybe why the celebrations were so wild, because of where it was. That could have been a reason for it. But I do remember them playing Roll With It. I can't remember You'll Never Walk Alone, but I do remember them playing Roll With It in the place, absolute bouncing. It was a great day, and that was a great season. Jim Orr, who does the Friday Club, is an absolute expert on this season, because obviously he wrote the play Bend It Like Bratback. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to Jim Orr about this, he's an encyclopedic knowledge of games, what went on, the draws and stuff like that. And it'll be interesting to get his take. I'll ask him his take on it. But for me, that rates as one of my favourite Celtic Cup finals. Really does.
Oh, that's superb. As I say, for me, it was the unknown, because remember the one trophy I've seen us win was against a team we were expected to cuff, if you know what I mean, because it was Airdrieonians at the time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we've only won 1-0, and it was like relief, even though we had to me at that point, you know, this great team that was upcoming. And yet here we are against Dundee United, the Premier League team, we scalped them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very much I'd never experienced, you know, winning a trophy where by the full-time whistle it was just a case of, well, I knew for 40 minutes, 45 minutes that we were going to win this. Do you know what I mean? It was brilliant.
When you look back at that side, when you look back at the quality that we had in that side on that day, that team would rip the current one a new one. Definitely. Because you're talking about, we've got Danish internationalists, we've got Scottish internationalists, we've got Stubbs, we've got Larsson, we've got Burley, we've got Andreas Tom. I mean, it's the 2 weak spots are probably the goalie and Reggie Blinker. And
the calibre of the key men is just of a far, far superior level. I mean, we you know, our best player, you would say right now, still in the squad is Odsonne Edouard.
Mm-hmm.
He's a France under-21 international. France under-21 international would be way down the pecking order in that team in terms of, you know, rankings. If you were to rank the players, you know, 1 to 11, who are the best players in the team? It wouldn't be a French under-21 international, would it?
Well, you look at this guy the right back that we're meant to be signing from Antwerp, and he's getting sold as the former Portuguese under-20 internationalist. That's what he's been described as. And we're talking about getting a Danish internationalist for £1.5 million who's got 50 caps. That's completely different worlds. Absolutely completely different worlds. As I say, maybe the world was more simpler in that time. Maybe I just hate modern football more as I get older. But the fact that I love that team. That team's got more quality in it now, looking back. And I don't think that's a nostalgic thing. I think I'm just stating a fact there.
Yeah, is there an argument though, Kev, when we were spending £1.5 million then, why on earth do we think £1.5 million players would work now? If you told me we're still going to be signing guys or at £2 million, £3 million 24 years later, you would say, no. There'll be 8-9 million by then.
Aye. It's football, it's where we are, and guys like that now, I mean, what we've got to remember is the following season, we gave Henrik Larsson a contract on the same money as Man United offered them at that point, or that was two seasons later, and that would never happen now. That would never happen in the Mumford Sundays now. We've got Chris Ayer, who's left to go to Brentford, and he's probably trebled 4 times his money.
Scary that.
To go to Brentford, and changed days. Music has also changed, Russell. Not for the better, we may add. But in September that year, the 18th biggest selling UK album of all time was released by a little band from Wigan called the Verve. And they released an album called Urban Hymns, which was preceded with a song. It basically put them on the map. A video, it basically put them on the map, called Bittersweet Symphony. This is a song and the video that made Richard Ashcroft a star. He went from a nobody to front pages of the tabloid newspapers in a click of a finger. Hey.
Well, it's funny you say put him on the map. Again, you need to look at my age at this time. It's the band that put the Verve on the map for me. Little 9-year-old me at this point. I only turned 10 in November 1997.
Wow.
I know. But that video, that you could ask my mum, she would come down the stairs. You're always an early riser at that age, aren't you? I'd be flicking through the Sky, a couple of music channels, MTV and VH1, just waiting on that video to come on each one of them, just to watch him swagger down. I remember doing it in the school corridor at primary school, deliberately bumping into folk. I go, well,
it's
I was tiny, but I remember replicating it and like an idiot at lunchtime and that. But it was so, you were transfixed on it because even by that point, I know it sounds ridiculous, but me and my next door neighbour, by that point, were making mixtapes, right? And it was predominantly Oasis that we were listening to at that point. We were obsessed already, right? Even though we seemed too young to get it properly, we didn't maybe know what cigarettes and alcohol was all about. Do you know what I mean? But we liked the songs. That was the key. And when the Verve stuff came out, it was on this sort of similar sort of wavelength in terms of the guitars and all that. And you seen the video and you went, wow, this is scarily good. We'll get to, the rest of the album. I'll let you do the comment first, but I'll explain what the next connection is.
What I liked about the video was his shoes, the Wallabies that he had on. And I loved these shoes. And the fact that his leather jacket looked 4 sizes too big for him. It looked like he had like a coat hanger on his leather jacket. On his leather jacket. And there's a story about the Wallabies that he wore in them. Wore in the video. They're fake Wallabies. They're fake Clark Wallabies. But after the video, Clark sent him boxes full of them. Of the right ones. He says that he had picked up these Wallabies in Spain and they were fake. Complete and utter fake Wallabies. But Clark sent him hundreds of pairs after the video.
Well, that is funny, Kev, because I'm actually wearing a fake pair of Adidas Sambas right now. So, but no, I didn't know that at all. But, again, the videos are iconic. When you're talking about that, I am seeing the exact shoes he's wearing and how loose they are. And begin to think, of course they weren't Clark numbers. You can almost, the more you look back at the shape of them, it doesn't add up. You're absolutely right.
I'm surprised nobody for Clark's picked up on it either. Going, he's wearing snide. He's wearing snide ones, man. Maybe they did pick up on it. That's why they sent him. Like,
we're missing a trick here, Kev. We are missing a trick.
Lanky 67. When the Verve came out, I was staying in my grand's in Fife. Takes me back to the good old days. It does take me back to the good old days as well. Now, I was into the Verve from their first EPs in 1992. They competed with Suede. Or Suede, whatever you want to say.
You're talking about Clark still.
I know. The first 3 EPs, I've still got them up the stairs would be the Verve. And then you've got A Storm in Heaven was their first album. Then for me, the perfect album was A Northern Soul. And I love A Northern Soul. I love a Northern Soul. And I was utterly distraught that they broke up. Ashcroft, Paul comes in. Ashcroft was wearing a dark brown, not black leather jacket over a denim jacket in that video. He did have a denim jacket on, and he still has the habit of wearing 2 jackets.
Well, do you know something about that, Paul? Right, I'm gonna like enter sound here, but you're talking about a Northern Soul, Kev, right? So, if I'm going to the studio, it's 7:30 is the pickup time, right? He'll pick me up outside in the big State of Mind truck. Now, to me, to G the team up on a Monday morning, right? And keep that comment up. That's very relevant, right? So, to me, say it was the other way around and I'm picking Paul up. I'm playing Rock and Roll Star on the Monday morning, right? Blow the cobwebs away. It's a new week at work. He's playing Chris Cornell's Nothing Compares to You. Right? Which is, right, on a Monday morning though, and Ian goes, 2 seconds, before he's leaving the car park. 2 seconds. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm going to put on History by the Verve. I'm sitting there going, it's 7:30 on a Monday morning. That is not the way. Is that what pushes your buttons at this time of day, Paul? So, and it's History by the Verve, what's they put on. But they are cracking songs. I mean, Northern Soul's got some songs on it that are just, to me, unbelievable. But we're here to talk about urban hymns.
I know, but I don't think you can talk about urban hymns if you're talking about a Northern Soul, because the Northern Soul left them with unfinished business because of the way that they split up. Okay, like you look at History on Your Own, and History and On Your Own were very more acoustic-based songs that to more of their psychedelic jams, which they were famous for. So by the time you get to urban hymns, Ashcroft sees himself as a singer-songwriter. That's what he sees himself as.
Correct.
He goes into the studio with Youth, and I think they produce 4 or 5 songs which ended up on urban hymns, but they cannot get nothing else to work. They cannot get nothing else to work. Then eventually they bring in Chris Potter and they bring in the Verve, and it becomes a Verve album. But I think you have to. The reason that they split up in the first place was because McCabe, for me, felt disenchanted by Ashcroft becoming this songwriter. Nick McCabe does not play on History. He does not play a note on History. And it's, if you've got a Northern Soul box set, he tells you in that, he says he walked into the studio, they played a bit, and he walked back out, and he never came back for the rest of that album.
Well, ego's getting away with a lot of bands, Kev. Ego's getting away with a lot of bands. The other story is that Urban Hymns was actually an album that could have potentially been Ashcroft's first solo album.
Well, Ashcroft now claims it was his first solo album. It should have been his first solo album. He claims that.
You think he's only claiming it?
Bernard Butler auditioned for Urban Hymns gig before Ashcroft went back to McCabe. Interesting. That is a really interesting point. This is going to show the age gap between us, Russell. You were turning 10 when this album came out. 4 weeks before this album came out, I went to see them at the Barrowlands on what was the Urban Hymns tour. It was a Sunday night. It was a Sunday night at the Barrowlands. It was absolutely boiling. And when you look at it, I've got this. I had to actually check out the set list. And that night, it wasn't the polished rock, overblown stuff that became Urban Hymns a year later, which became the Verve at Hague Hall and headlining Glastonbury and stuff like that. This was the Verve that was still stuck in the 90s Northern Soul groove. The Life's an Ocean that night nearly took the roof off the place. A New Decade, opened with A New Decade, was just, they were a really good swampy psychedelic band that night. I was having a look at the set list, and from Urban Hymns, they only play The Drugs Don't Work, Sonnet, The Rolling People, Bittersweet Symphony, and Come On. That's the only songs that they play from Urban Hymns that night. And somebody might need to correct me here. I'm sure Ashcroft done the songs from Urban Hymns apart from Bittersweet Symphony himself with an acoustic guitar.
Wow.
If I remember correctly, but then again, I might be mixing up some Richard Ashcroft solo gigs or that. I was... but for what I can vaguely remember that night, Ashcroft done The Drugs Don't Work in that acoustic himself, and the band left.
It's amazing though, because the importance of this album is, you remember the gig you went to see them tour that. The importance of the album for me, who, as you say, there's an age gap. The first single I ever bought, Virgin Megastores, $3.99, lucky man, made my mum take me in, knew exactly what I wanted before I went in the shop, went over to the chart sales. I would love to tell you I know what number it was at the chart, but at the time I did. I can't remember what his standing was. I don't know which week it was in the chart, but I was so obsessed with Top of the Pops and all that at this time. I literally took my mum, I said, we'll be in and out. And I had birthday money at the time. And we went in, bought the single, and knew exactly what number it would be in Virgin Megastores, picked it up and walked out with it. And that's the first single I ever bought directly in a shop. Now, I remember another important thing about Urban Hymns was I was allowed to stay up later at night when the Brit Awards were on, obviously the following March, because they're scooping awards. And I expected, because it was on the list, that they were going to play live. But they do play live, but it's not in the ceremony. They cut to them playing live at a gig. How do I remember all this? I have no idea. But someone can check it. I'm positive it's the 98 Brits. Because I remember them giving me special sort of, right, okay, you love this band, that's fine, you can stay up. But once they've been and played, you know, you're hitting your bed because I'm still so young. And they win an award at the Brits, but it cuts them playing their song live at an actual gig that they're doing then, not at Brit Awards, not at the Brit Awards ceremony.
There is to go back, I found this recently on YouTube, and I might put it in the comments if I can find it. There's a live gig of the Verve for 1993 in some Irish pub in Rochdale, where they basically do the whole of A Storm in Heaven. And it's a fantastic
I can't say I like them then.
Which is a fantastic gig. Anybody should check it out. There is a link to Northern Soul because there's an interview in Select magazine that I remember reading where Richard Ashcroft talks about this song that he's wrote. A Northern Souls just came out, and he talks about the song that he's wrote. It's got the chorus, because the drugs don't work and they just make you worse. And he taught, and it's quoted and selected. That was in 1995. I'm going to ask you a question. He says he didn't know the chart positions and all that. The Drugs Don't Work got to number one. It did. That was a number one single. What knocked it off the chart? What knocked it off the number one spot?
'97.
And I think this is how the Drugs Don't Work has got a weird crossover appeal. 97.
No, when did the Drugs Don't Work come out?
98. It came out in
98.
98. It came out. It came out before the album came out.
The album was September 27, 97. But by the time the Drugs Don't Work was released as a single,
was in the summer.
98.
No, the Drugs Don't Work was out before.
Oh, this is tricky, Kev. Because I know Urban Hymns Not Be Here Now off the charts for number one.
It did that, yes.
So are we going to link them back up together and say, do you know what I mean? Knock the Drugs Don't Work off number one?
No. The Drugs Don't Work was...
I'm annoyed.
The Drugs Don't Work was knocked off by Elton John's Candle in the Wind because Princess Diana snuffed it. But when The Drugs Don't Work was released the day after, if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, I might get us took off the air, the day that the Queen murdered Diana in a car crash going through a Paris tunnel, or it was just sorry, just rewind that, cut that off, or whatever. The day
I get what you're saying. I've seen the comment at the bottom, Kev.
Aye. So the Drugs Don't Work was released on the Monday after Diana died. So for me, that kind of captured the prevailing mood of those who are asked about these sort of things in the nation, and I think that made it a sort of crossover song.
No, I think that makes total sense. Seen the comment at the bottom?
Yes.
It's not the first time I've disagreed with Kieran today. I think he was making a lot of points that I disagreed with on the ACSOM bulletin today, directed at one of the contributors, but I don't want to give him too much kudos for it if it was the same one. I mean, to me, they're two of the biggest icons. As much as Noel Gallagher's someone in later life I don't like, I think they're, to me, two of the absolute biggest icons in the 90s that defined an era of music that is still resonating right now, 20 odd years later. But if it is the same Kieran I'm thinking of today, I won't miss.
Somebody's came in. I'm going to take back this comment. I'm going to take back the comment I made. I was making a wee joke. Aye, but that's quite obvious that Princess Diana wasn't killed by the Queen because she was 95 years old. that is extremely obvious. I think a lot of these guys, when they get to that, I'm going to bring in Joe Porter here because I think he's got a point here.
Okay.
Where is it went? Oh, it disappeared. Usher is the biggest eater of the 90s.
Well, if I was going to agree with Joe Porter, all I could say is, yeah. Yeah. Because that was his big song of the 2000s, wasn't it? Usher's No. Oh, you're too cool to even know that, Kev. Oh.
I don't know.
It's so proud tonight, mate. But no, so Usher had a song called Yeah. But yeah, in the 90s, that's when he came out. He was on Top of the Pops wearing, like the hats the swimmers wear.
Aye.
You must remember that. He wore that on Top of the Pops.
I do. Aye, so Urban Hymns. So there's two producers of Urban Hymns. There's two producers of Urban Hymns, and I think you can see a difference in it. So Urban Hymns is 13 songs long, right? Is there any songs that you would remove to make it... if you had to pick 3 songs to make it a 10-song album, I think every album should only be 10 songs. I think that's perfect. That's me. I'm just old school.
I think that's a very difficult question, though. I think to remove songs, what I would say, to flip it a wee bit, Kev, because I like flipping it, as you know, to pick your favourite songs that aren't the 4 biggest singles. You know, obviously we all know the hits. Sonnet, Drugs Don't Work, Lucky Man, Bittersweet Symphony. What are your other songs that you love on it? You know, what's your 3 songs? Is that not a more positive way that you would say the 3 best songs bar the 4 big singles? And you know what's incredible, Kev, right now? See in my kitchen, Radio X is on and Bittersweet Symphony has just started, and I'm not even joking.
That's spooky.
It's playing. I can hear it right now above the washing machine. Wow.
I really hope the MI5 didn't actually break down my door because of my Queen comment. So, if Richard Ashcroft...
You'll be a lucky man if they don't.
Oh, boom, boom, boom. I need space and time to escape.
So that would be one of my 3. Space and Time.
I think Space and Time has got very Jesus and Mary Chain vibes.
Unbelievable track.
I love it.
You're going to ask who claps their hands on it?
It's Liam Gallagher, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He also clapped the hands on Your Own as well on a Northern Soul.
Did not know that.
Or was it History? It's one of them. There's hand claps on it. It's Liam Gallagher. It's doing the hand claps.
Wow. No, it's On Your Own. On Your Own. No, that was Liam Gallagher as well.
It's Liam Gallagher. There's a hand claps on that. Right. Rolling People, Catching the Butterfly, and Space and Time.
So it's, for me, well, 2 out of the 3 were the same. And as Meatloaf would say, that's not too bad. Ain't too bad. So I would say Space and Time, The Rolling People, and This Time.
This time, right.
I love This Time, mate. That song to me is absolutely outstanding, a very underrated one. Velvet Morning's not far off as well.
Paul comes in.
I don't like talking about songs that should be removed. I like talking about the positives of the other songs, because I think, would you agree that maybe at times Urban Hymns is almost unfairly just, synonymous with the 4 big singles?
Yes, when they came back for the 4th album, and they came back at that point, there was only folk there that weren't interested in them doing the 10-minute verse and Let the Damage Begin and Man Called Sun, and they were only there to hear Sonnet and The Drugs Don't Work and stuff like that. When I'm talking about songs that I would remove from the album, first one is Sonnet. I do not care if I ever hear Sonnet once again.
No.
I see Richard Ashcroft, anytime Richard Ashcroft plays solo, I go and see him. He opens up with his new single and plays Sonnet right after it. I go to the bog. I can't stand Sonnet. I would chuck it in the sea, man.
Oh, no, that's because then you'd be floating without a hull. But no, that's clever. But no, Sonnet is my favourite out of the 4 singles, even though Lucky Man's the first one I bought. I think there's a moment in Sonnet when he says, "Here we go again, and my head is gone," that you watch a live crowd react to that moment of that song like no other difference in any of the songs he plays. So I'm amazed we disagree so much in that. It's upset me, Kev. Sonnet's my favourite out of the 4.
I didn't want to listen to Sonnet ever again. It's when I listened to this album the other day, I skipped it. I went, I'm not listening to that. That is just rubbish. I'm going to bring Paul's point and keep the 13 tracks and add Soul Sister and Lord I Guess I'll Never Know. I love the Lord I Guess I'll Never Know.
Amazing track.
I would replace Sonnet with that quite easily. I would chuck out Sonnet and put that in it. The other ones that I would take out is One Day. I would take out One Day as well, and Velvet Morning. I would take out Velvet Morning.
Oh no, I love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love Velvet Morning. Let's talk about the positives of the other songs though. Space and Time, mate. That could have easily been one of the singles, eh?
Definitely. Space and Time is, for me, it sounds like the Jesus and Mary Chain. It's got that sort of Mary Chain vibe about it. I love that song. I love Weeping Willow as well. Actually, my favourite songs on the album are the ones that are all produced by Chris Porter.
That's interesting.
Porter,
now,
sorry, it's not Porter, it's Porter.
Right. So, no worries. But did he not play for Motherwell? Chris Porter. But the Rolling People, if I'm not mistaken, when I first ever got to see the Verve, it was a privilege, and it was at Tea in the Park 2008. And I'm sure they came out to the Rolling People.
The Rolling People was also...
Or was it This Is Music they came out to? I know, I'm sure
This Is Music was always the one that they started with by the time...
And then the Rolling... But when they played the Rolling People, that was a tune that I had, as much as I loved Urban Hymns, I'd underappreciated till I seen that live gig in 2008.
Richard Murray in the comments on the YouTube comment, cheers. A nice picture of Cafkin Park as well. There's a BBC Glastonbury gig after Reformation, widely available on YouTube. That's essential. In fact, I'm watching it when you pair wrap up. It is essential. It shows you the genius of Nick McCabe as a guitarist. Nick McCabe's absolutely showcased that night. I loved the Verve round about this time. One last question. Do you think that's a Britpop album? Because it's classed, it definitely isn't, you know. I've got no... I think this is a psychedelic rock album. That's what I say it is. I think it's...
I suppose I find Britpop being a lazy tag at times for bands, Kev. For me, it's definitely maybe, which is a completely different show. But I don't class that as Britpop nonsense. Do you know what I mean? But I don't even see, the more I've delved into bands that were classed as Britpop, I actually love identifying the geniuses behind the songs and what the songwriting technique is and going, do you know what? How insulted would you be to be one of these fantastic guitarists or songwriters at that time and just all getting bandied together, lumped into one lazy sort of collective and then thrown out there as that's what they are? Nonsense.
I've got a theory. Britpop started with Ride's Twisterella in 1992 and ended at Nebworth. That's, for me, that is the Britpop. There was also, it peaked at the Blur Oasis thing. It peaked then, and for that point, it was downhill. At that point, it was dead by the time they were on the 10 o'clock news and doing country house and that. And the zeitgeist moment, that's twice I've said zeitgeist tonight.
That is.
The zeitgeist moment of Britpop, the end of Britpop was Nebworth. That's just me. That's my...
How could you describe the largest freestanding gig of all time, the most demanded for ticket in British history, not of all time, but in UK terms, the most demanded ticket of all time. I think it was something like 1 in 22 people applied for a ticket for Oasis at Nebworth. How could you ever describe that as something as generic as Britpop, when that to me is a standalone, unique moment in music's history? And I find that would really insult me for that to be tarred with an era of music that had a lot of other bands associated with it.
That's the peak, that's the height, and that's where it should. That's where it ends. And I think even Oasis.
Is that Britpop to me? Is Nebworth Britpop, or is it its own entity?
Well,
that's a show for another day, maybe.
It is. Well, even Oasis actually admit now that they probably should have took a big break after Nebworth.
Another debate as well, which I enjoy, by the way. I love this. But
how can we debate it when two members of the band say the exact same thing?
Of course.
And Bonehead's one of them. He says, we should have either split up after Nebworth or took a massive break. And Knowles, and Knowles actually says the exact same. Now, he says, looking back on it, he says we should have, but then they're fully there, whatever they were doing and riding on the crest of a wave. But for me, that's the Britpop era from 92 to Nebworth.
Well, I get that, but I think for me, I look at it, when I look at music, Urban Hymns is an album up there that stands alone. I know it's after the Britpop era you describe anyway, but I would never have tarred that with any other brush anyway, because it's just, to me, it's such an album that means so much. I think means so much to so many people. And of course, Kev, before we go, and I know we must be getting late, right? But we have to explain why we're talking about Urban Hymns, and you'll probably do it better than me.
Yes. I'll bring Paul's comment. And Joe Guest dressed as a nurse, and the Country House video was the epitome of Britpop. The Verve was bona fide rock and roll. I think if you look at the albums in 1997, which dominated the end of year's list in 1997, was Urban Hymns, Ladies and Gentlemen, We're Floating in Space, Be Spiritualised, and OK Computer, Be Radiohead. That's the three albums that dominated every end of year best list. And for me, not one of them is Britpop. And even though sometimes they're all lazily termed as Britpop, these three albums broke new ground. For me anyway. Anyway, basically, if you're a subscriber to the channel, at the end of this month, you're actually going to go into a draw to win a picture frame and a gold disc to commemorate the Verve selling 2.1 million albums of Urban Hymns, the 18th biggest UK selling album of all time. It is a fantastic prize, and all you need to do is hit that subscribe button.
It's an incredible prize. The way EMI awarded, you're going
EMI. Aye.
We never know how the boss man gets his hand on these things, but to think a viewer of a show like ours, I hope it's a Screamacelica viewer, Kev, if I'm being honest with you.
So yeah, I hope it's my dad.
I do.
I hope it's my dad.
I mean, I hope it's a Screamacelica watcher. I think that's the best hands to get it.
I hope it's my dad and he gives it to me. But somebody's going to win a fabulous, fabulous prize. And we've got plenty of other fabulous draws coming up.
Yep.
And I say, it only cost you a penny. All you do is subscribe to the YouTube channel and you go into a draw. And it doesn't matter if you were one of the first 97 that subscribed a year ago, or the final person that subscribes on 11:59 on the 31st of July. Everybody has the same chance of winning this ultimate prize.
If it was a raffle, Kev, I would have to say now, though, if your number was 97, you'd be feeling pretty confident, because that seems to be the theme.
I didn't realise that. There you go.
That's been mentioned a couple of different ways now, so I'm like, wow. It's all there, mate.
There you go.
I'm weird with numbers, man. I told you this.
That's good. I like that. I like that sort of. I mean, Bittersweet Symphony was playing on Radio X as we were talking about it. There was thunder and lightning out there, and like I'm into all of that. I'm into all of that. I'm away to meditate and see what I can feel in the afterlife. Right, I think that'll do us, Russell. That's an hour and 25 minutes.
I've loved it.
It's been great. It's been absolutely fantastic at a new time at 7 o'clock. And everybody, peace, love, keep it Screamacelica, eh? See you all later.